Alright guys, this is actually 1000% true story that I haven't told anyone. The only person that's heard was my girlfriend's dad, as he was the first person we seen following this encounter. But, of course, he didn't believe us. I apologize for a few incorrect measurements regarding distance. My phone was in no service. I was terrified, and my anxiety was kicking in. It's hard to remember how long I was driving in distance, but it was at least 2 hours. Okay, now the story. I'm going to use our real names just because I don't feel like remembering artificial names while trying to remember a story I've tried so hard to forget. So, I'll give it to you raw and unedited. My name is Jimmy. I'm a 24-year-old male from Wisconsin. My girlfriend's name is Cassandra, and she too is a 24-year-old female from Wisconsin. At the time, we were both 23, so this happened in late August of 2017. At the time, I had a 2009 Mitsubishi Eclipse GT. This may be a factor in the good outcome from that night later on. So, after a rough summer in my hometown and endless problems it seemed, I had had enough. I was ready to pack up and go in an instant, and that's pretty much what I did. My girlfriend's father owns a 15-acre ranch out in Arizona in the middle of the desert, about 45 minutes southwest of Tucson. The ranch is in 3 Points, Arizona, pretty much 45 minutes north of the Mexican border. My girlfriend's father, Rick, and I are very much alike. We both enjoy extreme sports, fast cars, and gorgeous women. So a workday for us would fly by with the breeze like we're two buds kicking the hell on a weekend. So the idea of living there with him in full seclusion, surrounded by desert and my favorite terrain of all time, mountains, seemed like heaven compared to this shit city I call home. I kicked the idea to my girlfriend the same day, and I said, screw this, and she agreed. It was time for a change of scenery. I packed all of our valuable stuff, put it all into my tiny Mitsubishi, and hit the road 3 a.m. the next night. Mind you, I didn't even get paid for my job yet, but I said screw that, I can't be here any longer. I hit the road with about $300, my girlfriend, a car packed to the brim, and the faith I'll make it safely and without trouble. Lucky, being a car guy that's ran into problems before, prepared I would say, appropriately, and brought some tire pluggers just for the hell of it. Little did I know I would need them later on. The trip is going smoothly, and we're about 17 hours in. I'd already filled up 3 times, and that 300 turned to 200, on top of food stops as well. 13 more hours to go. I can't necessarily say what happened, but I was halfway through Texas, running low on money. After such a long ride, driving straight through music seemed like it was just messing with my head, opposed to helping me keep me aware and awake. So I turned it off. 15 minutes later, my tires make a weird hiss, and me and my steering wheel start resisting a bit. Luckily, there was an exit coming up 500 feet. I get off, observe my tire, and Lord behold, an industrial nail plug right in the tire near the edge. I got it out, plugged the tire, and put air in. Temporary success. I continued my journey, letting my girlfriend drive to try and close my eyes for a couple of hours. Mind you, we've been driving for about 21 hours at this point. I mean, I'm exhausted. We fill up again and continue. I close my eyes and wake up about an hour and a half later to still be in Texas. I'm thinking, hell, is this trip ever going to end? Getting kind of frustrated, feeling like my girl probably weighs 60 extra miles driving like a granny. I asked her to pull over and let me finish. I fill the tire up, top off the gas, and go. About 2 more hours pass, and New Mexico's border is up in the next 30 miles. After being surrounded in total darkness for hours, we make it to a giant gas station. Literally, that's the name of it, and we pull in. I have half a tank of gas, $15, and I'm tired as hell. We had 8 more hours ahead of us, and we really felt we weren't going to make it. so we decided to call her father. No answer. Another call. No answer. 3 more phone calls. No answer. So we text him and continue on our way. Before we departed the gas station on the border, we checked out our maps to get a good idea on how much longer we had to finish the trip. So there were 2 routes. A longer route that takes about an extra hour, cutting through smaller New Mexico cities, including Albuquerque, with just a small patch of desert to drive through. I noticed the detoured route was an hour shorter in time and a straight shot through the desert. My Apple Maps wouldn't load the route properly or let me use it for directions, so I restarted my phone. Still nothing. I had to download Google Maps just so I could use this route. Mind you, the way we chose to take, there were no city lights, no high population, just small stop and supply towns with 100 cars around, but not a soul to be found. The first hour was okay, besides it being pitch black, traveling on a 2-lane desert highway with only 20 feet on the road in front of you being visible. Nothing else. Not even my taillights can make anything up behind me. As I'm driving, headlights appear in the distance, and I'm thinking to myself, finally, another driver. I won't be on this road alone anymore. After 5 minutes, the truck finally catches up, and it's behind me, about 2 car lengths. Remember, I'm driving a small Mitsubishi Eclipse, full of a bunch of my belongings, and with my tire having issues, it was putting a bunch of weight on it, making it uncomfortable to drive going high speeds. So I'm going about 60 miles per hour, and I could tell this truck wanted off this road as much as I did, because they start passing me on the other side of the road, going about 90, flying past me. I'm big on cars, and I'm our shop's driver for our race team in South Arizona, so I know cars, and when it comes to speed, I'm usually spot on with it. I'm thinking in my head, man, I'm jealous. I just want to ditch all this stuff in my car and floor it with this guy. 20 minutes later, I'm proceeding on my route, and I see a huge semi coming up behind me. They never fully catch up, just close in the distance. I would say 500, 600 feet. I looked in my rear view. Still, nothing significant. I glued my eyes back to the road for another 3 minutes and check out my rear view again. Wait, he's gone. What? How didn't I see any roads to turn down? It's just been desert and one road. I say out loud to myself. Mind you, since we left the gas station on the border, my girlfriend has been sleeping like a newborn. I look over at her to tell her what I just saw, or didn't see, and I think, nah, I'm gonna let her sleep. I'll tell her later. As soon as I'm making my eyes back to the road, my phone internet data completely wiped out on me. I couldn't make a phone call, send a message, nothing. Luckily, Google Maps was still loaded, so I continued to follow the same route, when all of a sudden, a bright light came up behind me, in a distance probably a mile away, ground level. This light was so bright, but seemed so directed. It didn't illuminate anything around us, it was just pointed at my car, like headlights. I remember cussing, flipping my rearview mirror to reflect the lights. I assumed they had their brights on till I looked in my side view and realized how far the light actually was from me. I also said out loud, "Those are some bright lights, I need those," kinda joking to myself out loud, even though it was one of those diamond-shaped lights. I figure it just looks like that because it's far, and they're probably missing a headlight, so I didn't think much of it. Just chopping it up to it's probably the truck driver that disappeared earlier. I drive for 30 more seconds, and I look in my side view again. The light's closer and gaining on me extremely fast. Too fast to know that nobody was that interested in driving over 100 miles an hour in pitch black desert with only one headlight. I look down again. I look in the mirror. Okay, I got anxiety and I wake up my girlfriend. I tell her that what I've been seeing and asked her to check it out and make sure my eyes aren't messing with me from being so exhausted. She saw it too, and I don't know what it was when she looked at it, but after all I just told her, she looked, and the only thing she said when she turned back around to me was, drive faster. I floored it. With all my weight on the car and my low-pressured tire, I gunned it and got to about 100 miles an hour when I realized how unsafe the situation was. Then, I receded to about 75 miles an hour, just trying to keep my distance from this light. Then, it's gone. We have about 29 miles left till we get to another desert highway going the direction we were headed, and despite all my potential problems about the strange light, it's all I could think about. About 11 miles to go, and the light comes back, and out loud I look at my girlfriend and smile, and say, "Look, our friend's back," in a joking way, with a smirk on my face. At this time, though it just made me feel weird, I didn't really think too much of it, just how weird it was. This time, the light was closer, and I speed up again. It follows us for about 6 more miles, and then goes again. We finally switch routes and stop in this old rundown town about 30 miles west of Roswell, New Mexico. I see the sign stating this, and in my head I say, "You gotta be kidding me," as my girlfriend and I are big on paranormal and take a huge interest in it, being a believer for the most part. I joked to my girlfriend about it and stated, "I knew it was an alien," and we both laughed. This town was so creepy. No gas stations, no lights, just cars on top of cars, and no people. There was this old rundown motel that looked to be abandoned, but the only light around came from that light over the door of the motel. Also, let me state that I found that leaving this town, we were on the historic Route 666, now known as Route something old, but you'd never know it if you didn't care to look into it. Mind you, my phone is still out of service. I park and get out to try for a phone, after ringing the bell and knocking for about 5 minutes. I get back into the car and tell my girlfriend no luck, and we're just gonna have to continue on. Another 68 more miles to go till we make another turn. God, this is raising the roof on my anxiety. I don't know how I feel at this point. I just remember saying that I wanted this to be over. Low enough for my girlfriend to not make out what I said, but hear me mumble something. I said, "Oh, nothing," and just continued driving. When we pulled out of the motel, we drove past a parked semi off the road right next to the motel. As soon as we took off, this truck started right up and got on right behind us. I say, "That's weird. Why did he decide to leave when we left?" And my girlfriend says, "I don't want to find out. Drive faster." So he's following us for about 15 miles, and we come up to a 4-way cross intersection. I stop, and I'm like, alright, what's he gonna do? I pull over to the side of the road, and he goes past about his business. Instant relief, I felt, I'm not gonna lie. That was short-lived though, because immediately getting back on the road, I noticed the light once again came back, and we're on a different highway stretch. How? Why? As I'm telling my girlfriend it's back once again, I kid you not, this thing started elevating from the ground level to just over our car, where we could still see it trailing us in the mirror. But by this time, it was trailing us from an aerial position. I freaked. I released my expressed fear and floored it. It was that feeling when you know something's about to happen any second, but you're still trying to get ahead while you can. For those who play PUBG or Fortnite, you know when you're outside the battle circle and the storm circle is closing in on you, and you're trying to make it before the storm catches you, knowing it's coming faster than you can run, and you're expecting it to hit any second, but you don't stop for anything. Yeah, that's exactly how it felt, and I just knew something was about to happen to us that night. I was creeping up on a quarter tank of gas with a bum tire and an extra 10 hours of constant driving. I was mad, upset, scared, and determined, all simultaneously. I'm gonna be completely honest. I sat here for 30 minutes trying to remember what happened after all that, but I honestly can't. I really can't, and it's giving me a really sick and nauseous feeling. I remember the whole trip, up to a T, until that happened, and I remember being sad, highly irritable, and anxious for the next week. From that night, I just remember making it to a small gas station after that 69-mile stretch I just did. I talked to a local weird-looking guy. Definitely somebody I'm not used to seeing. Rough, gritty-looking, brownish redhead, and wore some extremely thick opticals. I told him about our trip and what we saw in the desert, and that I don't really remember what happened after I saw it again. He chuckled and said, "You made it out, guys. They didn't keep you for long." I looked at my girlfriend, and we made awkward, nervous chuckles. You can tell we just did it to not be rude by laughing at what he seemed like a dark humor joke. I asked, "How much more desert do we have to drive through?" He says about 45 minutes before we run to our first big city, south of Albuquerque. I'm like, hell, but that's 45 minutes and seemed a lot better than another 2 hours. So I threw in my $15 and got back on the road. At this point, I knew we weren't going to make it back to Arizona with the amount of gas we had. At the blink of an eye, after we left the desert gas station in the middle of nowhere, my phone service cut back on to my relief and surprise. I instantly grabbed it and told my girlfriend, "Call your dad." She had just lost her phone before we had departed from Wisconsin, so we only had my phone. Her dad picked up and decided to meet us close to New Mexico, and we're heavy recreational smokers on top of work and sports. That's what we like to do to relax. All of our family knows it's her dad, so he had some medical grade ganja waiting for us when he met us. Telling him about our experience, he laughed about it and said, "You sure you guys didn't smoke before that happened?" We both laughed and said, "Hell no, we didn't," but didn't really take the whole thing seriously. After rolling up a nice joint and taking a few deep, satisfying hits from it, we were back on the road again and a few hours from our destination when I started to really think, what happened? How did we lose a whole hour and a half of time? As much as I believe in the paranormal, I'm still not convinced in the whole alien abduction thing, but that crossed my mind, and for the next week, I got all of these unusual random emotions, and my girlfriend and I had weird marks on our chest, wrist, ankles, and neck. Both of us. It was nerve-wracking, and smoking a little bit helped me uncover little details following that. Nothing added up. I don't know what happened that night, and I know some of the guys think that wasn't scary, or I want to know what happened. Well, if this was made up, I would have made it much more intense and crazy, but this is very true, and I want answers as much as some others might. If you guys, anybody has traveled in that area, or stretch of freeway in the middle of the night and have experienced anything similar, please, I want to hear it. I can't be the only one to have this experience.